And realistically, it allowed us to take the opportunity of combining all the 15 years that I spent as a professional and really tying it together for my last 15 minutes and sharing it with the world. Because, a lot of people, they don't understand how much of our identity goes into fighting. And this really gave us not only a chance to give people a glimpse inside of it, but also for me to reflect on all the years that I've been doing this as well.
For sure, man. And you know, when you're getting filmed, I know that you did a film like earlier in your career,
Right.
but doing a second one, man, what did you learn from the first one that you kind of polished up for the second?
Actually, believe it or not, the thing that I learned from the first film, the most that I took away from was that people care about other people's stories. And I think that was one of the biggest things we talked about when we were talking about making a second film, was that everybody has a story, and we want to be able to relate to that and make sure that everybody sees that the story that I'm doing is really just a reflection of everybody else. It's just, I'm happen to be out there fighting in a cage, but we all have something to share. We have a story that can inspire other people. And that was the biggest thing when we were filming this. We told each other that this has to be what we're focusing on. Fighting is great, training is great, but it needs to be deeper than that. It needs to show the connection that we all have together.
Who are the main people that were, pivotal for you to get this out there, this story?
Well, the Carlos Cespedes, Anna Cespedes, the two that directed it. Carlos has been a training partner of mine for many years. We're both black belts in jiu-jitsu. We started training just about the same time together. So he's been around since the very beginning. He's seen all the ups and downs of my journey through this, from the times that I was homeless to the times that I was trying to borrow money from people just to eat, the injuries, the back surgery, the times that I had been countless events, and I had to keep pushing through it. So he was a part of it from the beginning. And then I've got great people that have been around me, like Josh Barnett, who's been a huge mentor and coach and friend, and now I'm working with him as a coach for him now. So it's amazing how the tables turn over time. And we've got so many incredible athletes that I work with now, as far as up and comers to veteran pros, that I've been able to take my experience and give that to others and pay back and be able to help pave the way for not only the next generation, but helping the current, in my opinion, many icons that I get to work with tighten up their game with the things that I've been able to pick up through the years.
When you're getting filmed and you need to open up, right, and share things that maybe you might not want to share, how hard is that for someone, what I mean, especially for a fighter, because I feel like ego plays a big part in your identity, as an athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think when you have a why that is connected to what you're doing this for, it makes it a little easier, right? Because when we were talking about making this film for people so they can be inspired by it, you can't hold things back because you don't want that to be seen. You have to be genuine. You have to be raw. You have to be open, because that's what people connect to. That's what's going to make people say, "Wow, that is me," because that's what I go through. So every time that I felt like I didn't want to touch into this, or I didn't want to be as open, it became easy when you have a why for it.
How long did it take for you guys to get this project completed?
Well, it's been a work in progress for a while. So I retired. My last fight was in 2019. So it gives you some perspective. We were ready to get this thing going. We were super excited about it, and then of course COVID hit. The whole world fell apart. So it's been just like the title of the movie, The Journey. It's been a journey, from when we decided to come up with this concept. I mean, when we started filming this, I was going through tons of injuries. My back was acting up on me again. I had other debilitating injuries that happened during the filming of this, and tons of other things that just kept making it more difficult to even think that we were going to finish this project. And so it's the fact that it's coming out now, as we're turning a corner on all these uncertainties that we've been going through in the world. I think it's perfect timing, and the fact that we did not have an easy battle with this thing makes it only more perfect.
Yeah, you touched on your last fight. That was in 2019 against Hector Valenzuela.
Valenzuela, yes.
Valenzuela, right?
Yep.
And that was the retirement fight. Take me back to that night and getting the win to end the career.
Hector is funny because I had three other opponents drop out. We had three different opponents going through this process, dropping out before Hector stood up and took the fight. and he's a world champion kickboxer. They brought in from Mexico, and we actually ended up getting an opponent 2 weeks, or it might have been less than 2 weeks before the actual fight. I mean, so think about that, going into your retirement fight, not even knowing if you're going to have an opponent. You don't know if this is going to happen. And when we finally got this guy, I was like, okay, great. Well, we don't have time to prepare for him, but I'm glad we have somebody. And the night was electric, man. Like I brought some of our kids from the academy in backstage with us. They walked me out in their jiu-jitsu kimonos, and to me that was a sign of passing the torch to the next generation. And it was emotional. I'll be 100% honest. It was emotional because I've walked in and out of that cage, not that one specifically, but the idea of a cage for so many years, and doing it for that last time. I talk about it in the film that when I stepped in, I almost didn't want to go in. I just want to sit there and take it in one last time as long as I could. And we went in. We had a great fight, and I'm glad it was that kind of a fight. It wasn't one that was going to be easy, and I had to earn it. I had to want it, and Hector really wanted to make it a tough fight, and it was. And I'm glad I was able to end it on that note.
Do you think there's any chance of you coming back to fight? You're not too old, and you got guys nowadays, coming back in their mid-40s.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? For me, my goal was always to become world champion, right? And I've had my moments of success. I've won championship titles, and I've been at the top pinnacle of the sport. I might have never had my opportunity to go fight. Let's say who's the champion right now. In what it doesn't really matter the name, but I didn't have my opportunity to fight that specific person. But I know where my skill set's at. I know where I belong now, and so I really don't have that drive anymore. My passion now is for the next generation. Like, perfect example, I have one of my kids. He started with me when he was 16 years old. He's 19 and a half now. He came in, walking into my doors, no experience, and he said he wanted to be a fighter. And I was like, okay, well, it's going to be a long road. Let's just train hard, and we'll see what happens. This last weekend, he just went out, and he's undefeated right now as an amateur athlete. But he became the California state champion by defeating one of the top guy in the state, and finished him in a minute and 20 seconds of the first round. Like, to me, that is where my legacy belongs. And I want to be able to be with those guys hands on as a coach, not from the sidelines, but right there in the fire with them. And who knows, maybe down the road when my son is old enough where he can understand what's going on and appreciate it, maybe I'll do not a comeback fight, but maybe I'll do a fight against a guy from my era, like something fun where we can go out there and, in our mid-40s and be like, hey, let's go have some fun for one night. It'd be like two golfers that go out and play a celebrity round of golf or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Is your son into the martial arts?
He's only 15 months, so he was born right in the middle of COVID. So
Okay.
I'm gonna say yes because he's been on the mats before he could even walk, and it's amazing because he gets so mad when we take him out of the gym. He loves watching training. He loves watching the guys, and he shadow boxes on his knees. It's incredible. It's even before that, he would sit and just watch fights on the couch. So I think he's definitely going to be a martial artist. I'm not going to push anything. If this is something he wants to do, I'll let him decide that. But in the meantime, I'll get to have some fun with him along the way.
What do you think about the generation now that's coming through? Like you mentioned, your fighter, 19 years old, that's killing it in the amateur ranks. You rewind 15 years ago, man, the skill level of guys similar to his age. What do you think?
I'm glad I'm out of the game. You know what I mean? Like, these kids now are terrifying, because when I was coming up, there was no blueprint, there was no game plan, there was no YouTube, right? We couldn't even research opponents. It was like, you're gonna go fight on Friday. Where? Here. My first fight was in Tijuana, Mexico, because it was illegal in California, right? So these kids have guys like me and this wealth of information that they can learn from, and they are able to develop their skill set at such an exponential rate. It's terrifying. The fact, me thinking about getting in there and fighting one of these kids, I'm like, no, I'm good. My back doesn't even, just thinking about that hurts my back.
Yeah, yeah, the skill level is incredible now, and going back to the pandemic, you said your son was born in the midst of that. How did that affect you and your life and your daily grind?
Well, it was crazy. We were booming as an academy. My gym was was packed. We were in the process of trying to sign a lease for a much bigger facility. And right when the pandemic hit, I'm so thankful that I didn't sign that lease, because there's no way we would have been able to survive. My athletes, they're trying to make careers out of this. That was tough. Then my wife was pregnant, and we didn't know what was going to happen with our son going in and out of hospitals. And when we started trying to figure it out, then she gets laid off from work. So it's like it was one thing after another. And even in the hospitals, I was constantly asked to leave the hospital because nobody knew what was going on with this thing. So I didn't even know if I was going to be able to watch my son be born. So when he was born, everything was actually, the hospitals were pretty good about it. They let me stay in there. We had to do constant testing. But being home, it was just, the uncertainty was the hardest of all this, right? And I think that goes for everybody. Nobody knew what was going on. I was trying to keep my athletes motivated, because a lot of fighters, they will not train if they don't have a fight. It's not their lifestyle yet. And if you want anything to be successful, it has to be your lifestyle, not just a hobby because you've got a date associated to it. It has to be a lifestyle. And that was probably the most difficult thing during this.
Nowadays, what is your your day-to-day like? How do you keep yourself occupied? I know you're coaching, but other than that.
Well, I'm traveling a lot, so my days are slammed. I'm coaching every day. I've got a room full of athletes that are fighting. We had 7 guys fighting last weekend. Next weekend, I fly out to Missouri. One of my fighters is fighting for the LFA world title. Just before that, I was with Pedro Munoz for his fight against Jose Aldo. So if I'm not with that, I'm at home with my wife and the baby, trading shifts. I'm with him in the morning. She goes to the gym. She runs the front desk at the gym. Then I go to the gym. I train the guys. I try to work out myself. I come back, help with the baby. Then I go back to the gym, teach for my group classes, and then I come home and try to spend a little time with her. So it's a pretty hectic schedule, but I enjoy it. And this is the life, man. I made this life, and I love it. I really do.
With this film coming out, are there other projects in the works for you? Do you want to continue doing, films? Because, 2 in a row, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, for film, we'll see what happens with that, but I am writing a book right now as well.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping by the time the film gets released, we'll be done at least with a rough draft of the book. It's called The Mindset of a Champion. And I'm excited about that. That's my whole story, from how my childhood started, getting into, where I am today, and just sharing that with the world. And again, that's my biggest thing. I want to be able to inspire people with my story, whether it's on film or on literature or even audio, because I truly think that the fact that I've been able to do something with my life is a sign that everybody can do it. And we all just have to be willing to fight for a little bit. What it is that we want. We all just have to fight for it.
Are you enjoying life as a coach more than as a fighter?
Honestly, I think I'm a better coach than I was a fighter.
Mhm.
I loved fighting, don't get me wrong, and I still think I can be very competitive with the best guys in the world. But um, I think that my ability to coach and translate to these guys is more of my calling than fighting ever was. I have a passion for it. And when my guys go and step in that ring, I feel like I'm in there with them, whether they win or they lose. I take it to heart. And, that I think that's a testament to how much of a growing program we have at my school. I mean, I think we've got, today alone, we have just close to 40 athletes training on the mats today.
You see nowadays the kind of like this shift in coaching in MMA. Do you see it happening? You know what I mean? Like the guys that were known maybe 5 years ago, they're still there, but it's not like they're out there in the media as much, because you got this new wave of coaches, and you're part of that, right? You're one of the guys.
I would think so, because got to remember, when guys like me were fighting, our
Mhm.
coaches didn't have the opportunity to fight. There were guys that were trying to figure it out,
Mhm.
right? So they were like, oh well, I think this works. I think that works. There was no real outline or blueprint of how to coach a world champion MMA fighter. And now you've got guys that have done it. They have the path. They know what it takes. And so now guys like me and even American Top Team with Mike Brown are stepping into these pictures where it's like, hey, I'll tell you why this works, because I did it. I was able to do this, or I fell short of this because of X. We need to fix this. And you see it time and time again, because those are the camps that are being able to shine, because they are doing things differently than the guys that are still trying to guess.
There's a fighter right now in the UFC flyweight division. He's a top contender. And many years back, you went over to his country, New Zealand, and showed him, what these hands feel like, right? So talk about that trip, man. When you went to New Zealand, and is it a trip to watch somebody that you faced many years ago being a top contender in the UFC at the highest level?
You know what? It's one of those things that it's exciting, right? Because
Mhm.
I know that the guys that I've fought in my career, I've fought some of the best guys in the world, and that allows me to go to bed at night comfortably. Even when I fought Kai, that's who you're talking about, Kai Car France,
Mhm.
I fought him in his home in native country, and that was an amazing trip. Honestly, that was probably the best event of my life as far as my career goes. Going to New Zealand, traveling out there, we were greeted by the tribal lands people, and they did a whole Warriors haka for us. Like right when we got off the bus and we arrived there, it was like a 3 hour car ride from the airport too, and it was unbelievable. And Kai was their national champion when I fought him, so it was years ago, but he was still, he was a bad dude back then. And, they didn't bring me there for an American to go beat their hometown guy.
No.
And, so luckily it went my way. I landed a good shot. And now he's in the UFC. So it's really cool to see.
It's almost proof to the kids that you're coaching, right? It's like, hey man, if you really want me to take you out, I could still take you out. Look at this dude that I fought like years ago, and he's a top contender. So, you better listen.
Yeah, I did a post the other day, and I make this joke that I'll grind them for like an hour and a half session, and then I'll step on the mats for like the last 10 minutes, and I'll just to show them I still got it. I'm like, oh my god, coach whooped my ass, and I'm like, well, old coach's trick. I let you get tired first, and then I came on.
Hey, I do the exact same thing, right? That's classic. That's classic. Now, this film coming out, what I mean, August 27th, exclusively on Fite TV. How did you guys decide to put it on Fite TV? What is the connection there?
Well, Fight I know is they're trying to really build their library. A
Mhm.
lot of things, like with the Jake Paul stuff, Logan Paul, all those boxing events that are happening now. I think it's a good platform right now because they have a lot of momentum, and that's what we want. We want to get it out there. I know there's going to be other platforms that we are going to touch on, but that's going to be the launch of it. And I know that's the one that my team behind this have been really pushing for because they are focusing a lot on combat sports, and that's where we want to start it off with, is just get it in the hands and the eyes of people that are in our industry, so we can start creating a great conversation with the film.
For sure. And any final words for the people that are anticipating this film when it comes out on Fite TV?
Just check it out, spread it around. I would love to hear from you guys. Like I said, even though this is my story, I'm waiting to hear yours, because we all have something that's worth telling. And all we got to do is go out there and put it in a way that makes sense. And don't be afraid to chase your dreams, because they're all reachable as long as you're just willing to go for it.
And let's say a fighter is watching this and they want to be coached by you. Where can they find you?
If you guys want to come down to California, my gym's at California Mixed Martial Arts. You can hit me up on Instagram at Chad Savage George. Come down. We have some of the best athletes in the United States training with us. We constantly have fights coming up. Come down. Let's have some fun, and let's make some magic.